Hiya! Welcome to this, my 53rd episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled We Are As Gods, I highlight a couple odd short-lived series starring Cavanagh and Mark-Paul Gosselaar. I finally caught the first 3 episodes of A Million Little Things, plus 2019 VMAs Tay-Tay and Lizzo just giving me life right now. I took a DNA test and I'm 100% your podcaster. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on video, Fuzzy.
And what's going on with me? I am so excited for Labor Day, I can't even fully express it to you. I have needed a long weekend for all summer. Here at the City Brew, getting a jump on fall, they've got pumpkin spice everything, and I don't tend to go in for that because something about it makes my teeth feel slippery, but this place smells amazing, and my caramel macchiato is a tasty, tasty thing. Also enjoying the vibe here, I was surprised by the Be Good Tanya's cover of the Purple Ones, When Doves Cry, and Brett's ethereal cover of Wang Chung's Dance Hall Days, A.C. Newman's cover of Take On Me, Starfracker's evocative Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, and Sugar Ray's previously unreleased cover of Time After Time, and Best Coast's beautiful cover of Rhiannon. Oh, and not so great, I heard UB40 featuring Chrissy Hines' unnecessary drum machine and emotion-free cover of Sonny and Cher's I Got You, Babe. Meh. And as the 3 or 4 weeks of actual summer we got here come to a close, I hope everyone had a good one, and all the best heading into what Farmer's Almanac forecasters are promising will be a parade of snowstorms. I wouldn't pay $1 to see that parade. I'm just enjoying whatever decent weather we have for as long as we have it.
Friday Night Feature.
In 2008, Steven Bochco launched what would become 2 seasons of the courtroom drama Raising the Bar, starring Mark-Paul Gosselaar as Jerry Kellerman, a disheveled, idealistic public defender tilting at windmills of such injustice as, in the case we witnessed in the pilot episode, inadmissibly prejudicial law enforcement, insurmountably strict probation restrictions, and improbably inflexible jurists. He rolls into work half-dressed from the subway. Why would he not have time to pull himself together on the platform or in transit? His supervisor lets him know the status of his case. He's pulled at Judge Trudy. Oh man, she is the worst. His client is innocent. He's served 11 months on a rape charge where the officer showed the plaintiff, Ann Harlow, one mugshot and she said, "That's him," despite her being attacked from behind and, by her own admission, never got a good look at him. The DNA evidence was non-existent because rapists are more careful these days. His client, Kelvin Hines, had a jackknife in his possession at the time of his arrest, and this was apparently a parole violation. Kelvin's black, I should mention, and his having a mass-produced jackknife in his possession is presented as proof positive of his guilt by the assistant DA prosecuting the case, a young blonde minx named Michelle Earnhardt. We meet her at the top of the episode being actively sexually harassed by District Attorney Nick Belko, who is just staring at her cleavage and making lots of smirky, suggestive comments. Oh, and we're rooting for her because she's not going to be no victim. Nope, turns this hostile workplace around on him. Michelle calls him on his BS, first confirming his intention to seduce her, and then, if he feels like he can satisfy her, then, on his stated belief that she's easy to please, hops across his desk, tugging at his clothes, boldly molesting him through his slacks. "Let's go, big boy." Nick's flustered. He's got a meeting in just a few minutes. She laughs at him, telling him not to make promises with his big head that she peers down, his little head can't keep. Well, that sets the tone for that office. Over in the courthouse, Kellerman's colleague reaches out to Assistant District Attorney Marcus McGrath, and the likeliest reason I was giving this thing a look in the first place, J. August Richards and his... Man, this guy makes a lot of courtroom and law enforcement appearances. I've been a fan since his appearance as Charles Gunn in Angel, the final season of which saw him as a defense attorney for Wolfram and Hart. He took on similar roles in Conviction, The Defenders, and Raising the Bar here, and then also as a deputy sheriff I spotted him in the pilot episode of Kevin Probably Saves the World. Oh, and there's a scene at a bar where we find Kellerman, Earnhardt, and McGrath, all friends from law school, drinking together with, oh, hey, Kessler's law clerk is there too. Is it weird that we're all here and it's just us? living that line from Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew, behave as adversaries before the law, strive mightily, yet eat and drink as friends? Because that's exactly how that happens, right? Not even ethics, just the potential for tipping your argument, and incidentally, is that specific case they shouldn't really be talking about the only thing all these young lawyer buds have to talk about. Oh, I guess there's a shocking reveal about Kellerman and Earnhardt they were saving. I should steel myself before I fall over backwards in surprise and alarm that these two hot young lawyer buds are hooking up, but guys, seriously, the practice kinda did that one already, and frankly earned it way more than you have. Should have just called this series Ex Parte. Ex Parte, Ex Parte of Five, Ex Panties, whatever. Meanwhile, Kellerman defends his client, Calvin. Judge Kessler advises the jury about the tenuous nature of the one and only mugshot identification, and Kellerman gives his closing argument. If you convict Calvin Hines, 3 more crimes will have been committed here. One against Miss Harlow, because her rapist will never be brought to trial. The second against Calvin Hines, who will have been wrongly convicted for a crime he did not commit. And the third against all of us, because a wrongful conviction inflicts a grievous wound on the most sacred principle, truth. Kellerman points out there's no DNA evidence. The ID was based on Harlow's gut reaction. Kellerman called it a lynching, which sets the judge on her heels. Then, when the jury returns with a verdict of not guilty for the rape, but guilty of the parole violation, the judge feels she should sentence him for 25 years because the guy owned a knife. Just possession of a knife, which the jury just exonerated him from the crime he was accused of committing. However ridiculous I think she is, Kellerman is 20 times more outraged and lands himself in contempt. But remember that courthouse contact by Kellerman's colleague earlier, his colleague talking to Marcus McGrath? Well, that set a very random chain of inquiry in motion where Marcus puts pressure on an informant that hits pay dirt, a completely random confession from Harlow's actual rapist. Serial rapist confessed to 11, including hers. No friggin' way. All of New York City penal system. The one snitch nets them a useful confession in time for Michelle to approach Judge Kessler, over her skeevy boss, Nick's objections that she just take the win. Well, Kessler's not going to listen to any ex parte evidence, going to kick Michelle out of her chambers with her fresh evidence till, oh hey, look who's suddenly relevant. Kessler's clerk and sometime barfly says he'll go down and pull Kellerman out of lockup to hear the update. Kessler's flustered, waves her hand, sure, why not? All assembled, Kessler hears Earnhardt's discovery that Harlow's actual rapist has signed a confession, which should knock his possession of a jackknife to time served so motioned. Kellerman is elated. He knew his client was innocent. He can take his release and go back to his daughter. Judge Kessler's unmoved, said a jury of 12 found him guilty. Who is she to overturn their finding? Kellerman is newly incensed. What the? Calvin should be eligible for bail at least. Kessler, okay, of course, naturally, he ought to be eligible for bail. Sets bail somewhere in the stratosphere, and now I feel like Calvin must have pissed in her cornflakes or something, and she's all, oh, but a jury found him guilty. I'm setting that billionaire bail. See, at this point, if I'm Kellerman, I shut my mouth, apologize for any misunderstanding, whatever it takes to spring the contempt charge, return to my office, and file about all the appeals, because Trudy Kessler is clearly and demonstrably a lunatic. But because drama, Kellerman shoots off his mouth again and gets dropped back into holding. That's about where my copy cuts out. I'm sure this resolved because the show continued for a couple dozen more episodes on TNT, and I'm sure Kellerman didn't spend them all in the clink. It seems to me that this is about where his boss would show up and grease a few wheels, throw some realpolitik around, and clue Kellerman in on how things really work in this city. However it happened, the main takeaway from the pilot episode here is that everyone's hot and everyone prosecutor's defense, everyone's friends from school, and they all get together and talk about their cases every day at the bar. That Kellerman and Earnhardt are lovers, her boss is a creep, and Judge Malcolm's mom from Malcolm in the Middle is a friggin' nutcase. Oh, and that by the mid-noughties, Steven Bochco has fallen so far from Hill Street Blues and L.A. Law, like the legal equivalent of an Aaron Spelling production, Hunter from Ugly Betty, Brooke from 1-800-MISSING, Zach from Saved by the Bell in a suit. Hell, the only thing that they didn't do at that bar that they're all raising is have the client and the judge show up. Of course, Boston legal Stephen D. Kelly wouldn't worry about that. Hell, half the jury would probably have been at the bar as well. And if I thought this was as bad as it could get, I got a John Benet Ramsey knockoff episode of Close to Home, which is, yep, cast members from Angel. I followed them with some interest after that show ended. Christian Kane's appearance in Close to Home, as well as Leverage, is largely responsible for these shows' appearance in my collection. Leverage for seasons longer, mainly because that show was better and, frankly, Parker. In closing, I'm sure I have the mind-blowing wah conclusion of this episode somewhere, and I may even have kept additional episodes to see what else J. August Richards got up to, but this show, this Steven Bochco cable legal drama, did not seem entirely necessary. I will say this, Raising the Bar, as outlandish and histrionic as it was, did manage to make me feel something, but mostly because as a person and a citizen, I would prefer my justice system to have a bit more justice in it. David E. Kelley, cases brought in his productions are occasionally ridiculous, but mostly to set up opportunities for his attorneys and jurists to just expound on jurisprudence, legal theory, and frankly, whatever he feels needs saying in whatever political climate he finds himself. I don't know what Bochco was trying to say. Maybe injustice is bad, okay? Cross connection. Whatever my opinion of Raising the Bar, it locks a couple of tight connections to quality productions. In my Studio 6 Feet Under game, I mentioned several connections for J. August Richards up there, and here's another one. He appeared in the second episode of The West Wing with Bradley Whitford of Studio 60. And, if that weren't enough, Kellerman's colleague, Teddy Sears as Richard Woolsey, appeared actually in a couple episodes of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Tracking ties through my collection, as I mentioned earlier, J. August Richards appeared in all 5 seasons of Angel. I'm also showing him in Warehouse 13. I know I kept a few episodes of Conviction when that was on. He played young Dr. Weber in a Grey's Anatomy I missed. I'm sure he was lovely. He was in the 4400. He was actually on an episode of The Practice as well, played someone's former boyfriend in that production. Mark-Paul Gosselaar is all over my collection. I know I'm going to run into at least one episode of Franklin and Bash in this mess. He also played a political consultant on Commander-in-Chief. He was in Rizzoli and Isles, didn't keep a lot of that, and Happy Endings. Oh, that's it. Happy Endings, that one lapped into my dark ages, but more importantly, I've got the best line from that series was in the first season, so I know I've got that someplace. Looking forward to that turning up. Other cross-connections, the 24 episodes that turned up. This was the Mark A. Sheppard season of 24 as well. Good old Badger McCrawley, appearances all over my collection. This seems like a good opportunity to explore that. Sheppard, I have showing up in shows I know I watched, whether I recorded them or not, going back to the mid-90s here with The X-Files and Sliders. Then I'm showing him in The Practice. I think I picked up a lot of that show from when it was rebroadcast on FX. Now, whether I kept it all or not, we'll for sure find out as this project continues. Tracking forward, I've got him in Star Trek Voyager, The Chronicle, Firefly. He was in Monk. I mentioned his work as a terrorist, Ivan Irvich, in 24, which that season also featured Gene Smart and Gregory Itzin. He was in Medium. He showed up on the Bionic Woman reboot. He was in Plain Sight, The Middleman, as I mentioned last episode. Burn Notice, his intriguing lawyer character, Roma Lampkin, in Battlestar Galactica reboot. He was in Joss Whedon's Dollhouse for 3 episodes as Tanaka. I completely spaced that appearance. He was in Chuck. He played an advisor to President Nixon alongside Matt Smith's Doctor Who. He played the series arc insurance investigator Javert to Timothy Hutton's Jean Valjean over multiple seasons of Leverage, along with characters in White Collar, Warehouse 13, and, oh yes, how could I forget, Crossroads Demon and King of Hell, Crowley in Supernatural. Always a pleasure. Love seeing him wherever he turns up. Diving into the Classic Collection. In my Classic VHS-to-DVD transfer collection, I mentioned I found a few 5th season episodes of 24, including the 5th season premiere. This season opens on Gregory Itzin as President Logan trying to put some kind of treaty agreement together with the Russians, while Jean Smart as First Lady Martha has gone off her meds. Well, she's trying to pass on important information about treason, but President Logan is gaslighting her, trying to get her to doubt the evidence of her own senses, trying to keep her under control, and no one will listen to her. It's among the many, many reasons why we hate President Logan. Jack Bauer is not too far away, working in the oil fields under an assumed name, and there's a bomb threat at a mall, all within hours of President Palmer's assassination season premiere, which someone is framing Jack for, despite, according to official record, Jack's been too dead to frame for anything for more than a year. I will say, since the assassins framed him for killing President Palmer, Jack killing the real assassin felt like kind of a dumb thing to do. Keep him alive, bring him to trial, that kind of thing. Given that Bauer had a pretty good alibi for the assassination, since he was having breakfast with his family when he heard the frickin' news. Well, I did not watch this too closely as I was cataloging the thing. 24 presents a challenge because nothing changes in the production from one season to the next. Logically, all seasons are going to feature all 24 possible episode titles among the 8 different very bad days, so it's not always easy to tell which season you're watching. It wouldn't have been the worst idea to indicate which day we were on through color coding or a note at the top or the bottom of the screen. Well, no, that clean opening 24 indicator and the beeping was a brilliant choice style-wise, but then, honestly, the whole rest of the intro is available to say day 1 or day 4 or 5 or whatever. There are, yes, clues of the acting credits and storylines, show summaries listed at IMDb, but for this one, when the transfer for this dedicated tape turned up and I goggled some dialogue from the cold open at the top of the show, well, that info naturally took me to a script from the prior season, season 4, so my catalog and blog entries were goofed up for a bit till I figured out what had happened and put it right. And of course, all's well that ends well. In Monty Python updates, I found an extraordinary entry where John Cleese and Graham Chapman were chatty pepperpots, arguing over the intrinsic moral failing with regard to the concept of possession and the view of Jean-Paul Sartre, whose wife, Madame S., John Cleese Pepperpot had met whilst on holiday. They rang him up, but he wasn't available to come to the phone, so they hopped a skiff to France, by way of Iceland, and Michael Palin as Mrs. Jean-Paul Sartre let them into his study, where he confirmed his writings were an allegory for man's search for fulfillment, which was quite a long way to go for all that. But that wasn't nearly so outrageous as an exchange I encountered between John Cleese as Minister for Overseas Development and, as Pepperpot, Terry Jones as his mother, and Michael Palin as her best friend, who's impressed how he's grown. Oh, he's walking already. It is such a clever little boy. Oh, he's got a tummy tum-tum. Oh, he's got a tummy tum-tum. And then drifts off camera and explodes. The seemingly obvious joke being that they're talking baby talk to a member of parliament when, in fact, the much more subversive aspect is Michael Palin's character's name, which is in my archive and was broadcast by the BBC in the 1970s and rebroadcast several times since, as recently as probably 2008 on the BBC America so as to get into this archive. But no, I do not wish to name her here, and not even with an AH at the end. For God's sakes, it's still posted with zero warning or irony in the Monty Python Just the Words online script service. Now, seriously, the show is high comedy, written and produced by wickedly funny men, reflecting the culture of its time by guys who knew from hilarious, but gotta say, I'm kinda surprised by the lack of beep censorship in the rebroadcast and starring out in the script service of Mrs. Narrator. It doesn't make the original not have happened. We're not sanitizing our cultural history, and it's not a, oh, aren't we more sensitive and enlightened now thing. It's a, seriously, if the actual joke was the shocked and uncomfortable, somewhat delirious reaction he wanted to cause in the wake of that usage, if we can all agree that the use of dehumanizing language was more common then, aired as well on American television, and was a pretty clear badge of privilege, plus, bearing in mind that 2008, and especially 2019, is so not 1972, can we do what we're able to limit the naked hostility implicit in the use of that language? Not because I'm being all politically correct here, but because basic human dignity is a thing, and for God's sake, we simply have to. I feel like I get sidetracked on this sort of thing a lot. This sketch was like 20 seconds in a show that was on the air for 5 years. They've got a catalog that spans decades over multiple platforms and continues today. Hell, we've got Spamalot going up in downtown Bismarck next month, and one's media collection is a history of cultural expression, and I'm going to find all manner of material in here, objectionable and otherwise. Even stuff I'm not myself recognizing is objectionable. All of it is going to be a product of its time. Just For one example, that scene I talked about up in Raising the Bar in the district attorney's office where the young assistant DA climbed over the guy's desk and started pawing at him. I saw what they were doing there. At the time, it could honestly have been viewed as her flipping the script, reclaiming her power. It was written as such. But then put that in the context that she's a young subordinate seeking to advance her career, that the potential for he said, she said, whatever the time period, it's basically inappropriate workplace contact, especially since he's still her boss. If he hadn't stopped her, I mean, she was undressing him, that could have just happened. So tell you what, I'm aware that Monty Python is not racially or sexually neutral content. It's going to show up all over my collection because I've been a fan for most of my life. It's reasonably strong comedy and social satire, and I can celebrate what's good about it while recognizing its shortfalls. Some material is just going to be stronger than others. I was hoping to just fly through this write-up, but damn, there were so many productions to discuss, such as Tom Cavanagh turned up as a talent scout for an indie label. He's written as this confident young influencer. As he breezes through his day, those around him are seen to emulate him, follow his lead, wear their hat like he does, select the baked goods he does. They're all looking up to this. I'm so sorry. I've really got to say this. Skinny, beige, old non-presence when Love Monkey, that's the name of the show. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's a crap title. When Love Monkey was on the air in 2006, Tom Cavanagh was in his 40s. He absolutely looked it. They had him playing basketball with guys and they're much younger than that, but never mind that. He found an artist. Wayne. Wayne plays acoustic guitar in New York City. What are the odds? Get that man a contract. The thing about it is, while the rest of the show is kind of dumb, label management is all on board, artist unheard. There's like one guy, Daniel Sanjata, who complains about money. A music video? How are we going to pay for a music video? And Tom, that's who Tom Cavanagh plays, Tom Farrell, calls in all the favors he's ever had. What are you talking? The way this guy lives his life, he owes everyone else favors. Hires a Sundance auteur to direct, who then maxes past his budget to shoot a reimagination of James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause as a short for a different project, and they fire him. It's looking bad for the video, but then they do what they should have done in the first place. Tom puts Wayne on the rooftop of his apartment building, takes his camera phone, and shoots a very indie video that looks like it must occasionally shoot right up the guy's nose, but when they cut it together, it's brilliant. Everyone loves it, and how could they not? Because that is basically the one thing I did love about Love Monkey. The artist, Wayne, played by Teddy Geiger, is this sweet spirit who's trying to do what everyone's telling him to do in order to get his song played. That song called For You I Will, parentheses, Confidence. And putting this together, I discovered Geiger is transsexual, updated her IMDb profile as of earlier this year. Good for you. This song appeared on their LP release in 2006, Underage Thinking. It's a good song. I have a better impression of the artist than the show, which I don't think I followed too long, so in case it doesn't come up again, I also enjoyed Judy Greer's and Lawrence Tate's performances, but oh wow, just cannot get past the writing on this thing and really not buying Tom Cavanagh in it, so no, sorry. What else? Bringing the rest of the 2008 Democratic National Convention in, The Daily Show put together its own spoof introduction video for Obama, and along with Lion King references, included a clip from Good Times. I was like, wow, the research these people did. The President of the United States was on Good Times in the 1970s. No, he was not. On closer examination in the clip they showed, that was clearly just main cast member Ernest Thomas as Raj. See, I never watched the show, but if he'd appeared on the show, I wanted to track down which episode. Thus ensued 20 minutes of scrolling and clicking around in IMDb, staring at the couple seconds of Daily Show archival footage on replay. And damn it, John, by your own research, Obama was working at a Baskin-Robbins when that show was running. Funny reference, of course, but dang it, my time is limited here. Oh, clearly it is not. By way of demonstration, on disc 737 of my classic collection, we get the title reference for this installment. Tom Lank as Andrew Wells, Tucker's brother, spends the 16th episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer's 7th season weaving a narrative that puts his antics first as part of incel troupe The Trio, then the blood sacrifice and incidental murder of his friend and fellow triot, Jonathan, in service to the first, in the best possible light. The episode is called Storyteller, and as yet I have not encountered the full episode in here, but I did find a scrap where bad guy Shapeshifter the First, in the guise of Warren, told Andrew that the trio would be together again as gods, sharing a truly mental image of the three of them pouncing about an Elysium field in togas with gold and unicorns to it. We are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods. Then, then Willow asks him, wait, what was that part? You mean this part? And we get a quick reprise of that scene. Good thing, too. We'd missed it before because A, it came completely out of nowhere, and 2, we were all still cleaning up from having peed our friggin' pants the first time around from laughing. I swear when that turned up in my collection, I had to. I know I generally do these things with my handy-dandy Casio keyboard, but I felt in order to capture the true spirit of that scene, nothing was going to do it like strumming rubber bands on Tupperware, which, well, you don't need to imagine. I posted that video, my third ever VideoFuzzy, the video installment, online. That link is in my show notes on VideoFuzzy's Facebook page, is now forever in the arsenal of my enemies. But seriously, I could not believe how friggin' hilarious that scene was, and having found it again, I needed to celebrate it properly. Enjoy! Nerd Show! Really quick entry on this one. I was excited to find a History Channel production of something called Evolve, which took what they were doing on shows like The Universe and How the Universe Works. That is, video and generated imagery cut together with narration and commentary from a range of scientists, and focused on the field of biology. Each episode, IMDb is showing 12 altogether, dated 2008, takes an aspect of evolutionary history and explores it through the lens of different biologists, anthropologists, paleontologists, and other researchers. As of this installment, I've only encountered the 5th, called Skin, which opens on a discussion of sharks, how their entire body is covered with sharp, tooth-like scales called dermal denticles, providing support for an already impressive mandibular array. The production goes on to discuss the skin of dinosaurs, birds, mammals, structures providing support and armor via exoskeletons and bony scales, mobility, regulating temperature, nerve endings as a means of gaining tactile information about our environment, our 5 senses, providing protection and insulation from the elements, and, in the case of feathers, making flight possible. The show explores milk production in mammals, a development of immunity, and other elements of human evolution and the nature of adaptation. It's a visually exciting presentation, a lot of good, quite accessible information, and I suspect if I encounter more of it that the series as a whole would be enjoyably informative. I will say, the production included a lot of computer-generated timelines that got a bit repetitive by the end, and visual augmentation on the video clips, but in saying that, I appreciated how the production team included a good selection of actual footage of animals, both in situ in the wild, as well as isolated against blank backgrounds to highlight different elements the narration was exploring. So, as criticism goes, that's more stylistic than anything else, and barely a quibble. IMDb reports other topics include eyes, guts, sex, communication, and size, so that's probably of interest, and if this turns out to be the only one I archived, it was still kind of fun to see it. Current collection. In my direct-to-DVD recordings, I managed to catch the 2019 MTV Video Music Awards, and in a different universe, I might compare and contrast my treatment of the 2006 Video Music Awards hosted by Jack Black I featured back in episode 26, Bringing the Thunder, but you guys are free to pull that one up and enjoy. The event aired live from Newark, New Jersey, hosted by comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, who put a much lighter hand on the proceedings than Jack Black did in 2006, that's for sure. There were vast stretches of time where we were allowed to blissfully forget that the show had a host at all. More involved with setting the tone was Taylor Swift's opening production of multiple award winnings You've Better Calm Down, including Video of the Year and Video for Good. The VMA performance combined augmented reality with stage wizardry and just a fantastically representative backup crew. Full gender, racial, body type, and presentational fluidity. Joy just flowed from that stage, and the audience reflected all of it. I was really amazed. I tried to imagine what it would be like to experience it as an audience member, but if you were in that audience, you'd be bombarded with stimuli. You weren't going to miss nothing. Lizzo came out. She 100% slayed that birch. This was seriously, a lot of these performers, this was why I was tuning in. I barely listen to the radio anymore or anything. I just don't hear new music anymore, streaming, nothing. So I wanted to check in what people were doing, and Lizzo is sick, just amazing, made entirely out of love. I love that I finally caught the reference between that tweet from Hillary Clinton. I love the body positivity coming off of her and her backup. And that presenter from Queer Eye's Netflix reboot, Jonathan Van Ness, in a little black romper accentuating his legs for days, accessorized with a flirty lace cape complete with his long flowing hair and scruffy beard. He rocked that look. Other performers took full advantage of the visual wizardry the stage afforded. Lil Nas X's performance reminded me of Tron, while Missy Elliott defied gravity and maybe did a little time travel in her video Vanguard acceptance. Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello danced sensuously among virtual candlelight in their performance of Señorita, which won for Best Collaboration. Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus won Song of the Year for the Old Town Road remix, and J Balvin and Bad Bunny performed Que Pretendes, which it was hard to differentiate which of the dancers were practical and which were generated. Presenter Cardi B looked a little augmented and generated, but that was mostly, I'm an old, you kids get off my lawn. She looked great. All in all, the event was spectacular. Just the energy and the love and acceptance and joy coming off these people. It was just a brilliant production. So glad I caught it. And while music videos will barely register anymore, Love Monkey's handheld camera phone entry For You I Will would have had a tough time standing out in this field, I tell you. These shows are absolutely fantastic celebrations of music and artists. In other shows, the second season finale of Pose turned the tables on the judges. At the balls, the MCs tended to be cisgendered butch males in charge of evaluating drag artists and transsexuals, and participants thought the judges should have to walk a runway in their pumps. The drag queens judging the event did workshops with the MCs to work their walk, their story, and their look. At the top of the category, titled Butch Queen's First Time in Drag at a Ball, Dominique Jackson as Electra Wintour explained that for these participants, this was not their story, but a means by which to explore their feminine side and gain a greater sense of empathy with what the drag artists contend with at the balls and, for some of them, on the street. It was a romp and a laugh, and provided some levity in the wake of some of the heavy emotions from prior episodes, which found MJ Rodriguez as Blanca exploring new love, readjustment in the wake of Frederica's arson at her nail salon, and most of her house, the House of Evangelista, moving on with their own lives. End of the second season finale, Blanca encountered a couple of teens who moved to New York having been kicked out of their homes in Denver, and she opened her home to them. Looking forward to season 3. Live that truth. As Preacher's fourth season continues, Arseface caught up with Jesse, Cassidy's cellmate, and Angel reunited with his great love, a demon, and for his part, Cassidy got free of his captors and just wrecked his jailer and tormentor, Frankie, with a rifle up his bum, and Tulip was heading out on a Vegas road trip with Christ before he got all responsible and headed back to Masada for his conference with Hitler and Allfather Herr Starr. First item on the agenda, the apocalypse, set for, oh hey, next year. Well, that should be fun. Good luck with that. Other shows I'm enjoying, the third season finale of Claws made me wonder how much longer they're planning on going on with this. I mean, it's just Niecy Nash and crew have attitude for days, and the philosophy you make your own luck, they've taken this and run with it. But just the whole storyline about the Indian casino not being on tribal land, run essentially by one native in service to a Chinese mob operation, the tribe would have all kinds of questions. First one being, the casino can only be operating under the auspices of the tribe, so who's this mob enforcer? And, oh yeah, where's all of our money? The fact that there's a blind spot for handoffs to take place. The house knows all the machines and the tables and the payouts. There are layers of security. These operations operate so as to make money, and if they do not, someone's going to show up and ask why, with the Gaming Commission and tribal authorities in tow. Now, when we were all first introduced to Ruval's Casino, it was the end of Season 2. It seemed like answered prayer. If Desna owned a casino, they could launder all of the Dixie Mafia Pill Mill money and their troubles would be over. Over the course of charting Season 3, it seems clear they needed to install this bizarre casino management. Ruval only owned a small interest in the casino. Mob enforcers and all the problems that arose put a serious crimp in Desna's plans, and chasing this dream irreparably damaged her relationships with her brother and with Quiet Anne, who who, in the wake of losing her wife and Desna's lies, teams up with casino manager Joe to burn the place to the ground with the triad enforcer, the professor, trapped inside. That is a lot, not to mention Desna breaking Roller out of prison transport, Brickman re-upping with Polly, Uncle Daddy confronting Toby, and Virginia's down, but she no longer wants to marry Dean, so yeah, like I said, a lot. Hopefully season 4 will come back a little stronger. Oh, I caught the first 3 episodes of A Million Little Things from last fall. Laid in a good amount of backstory from where I saw that show. I came in around episode 5 or so. I felt like the show got off to a good start. I don't think I was aware that Rome had tried to commit suicide in the pilot episode. I don't think I knew that Danny was not out to his family at the top of the show. And from the voicemail John left on Eddie's phone, it seemed clear that he knew about his wife's infidelity with his best friend and gave his blessing. Which doesn't mean it wasn't a factor in his suicide, but okay, I've seen this show now. Pretty much all of the first season except for the 4th episode. Gotta say, so much must happen in that episode. By the end of the 3rd episode, Danny was telling Gary about a boy he liked, while Catherine was only just then finding out about Eddie and Delilah. The whole fraught history with Gary and Maggie, that started in the pilot episode where Maggie, a psychologist, is questioning Gary's presence in a breast cancer support group, and they're in bed together by the first commercial break, and she's quite instantly Delilah and Gina's best friend. This just occurred to me, but I think it's the season finale. We find out John lost his friend Dave on 9/11. It was such a big deal, he blamed himself, he likely killed himself over it, but when he had a son, he named him Danny, not Dave. You'd think that would have landed that reveal even harder. But putting it all together, I feel like whatever happened in episode 4, and who knows, I may even find out one day, A Million Little Things is a show that relies pretty heavily on its audience, supplying a lot of their own feelings for family, for nostalgia, for loss, which I think is probably why it's such a miss for me. Don't get me wrong, I've talked about it too many times in this podcast, the kind of feels I can dredge up in watching a TV show, but I think for me, the show would have to have been written from Sophie or Danny's perspective, advanced a couple of decades, years of relationships that never seemed to work out, a sense more of absence than loss. I mean, it's all there, I can totally empathize, but for all its manipulation, mostly what this show makes me feel is annoyed, so even with a fresh perspective, that's still a no for me. A Million Little Things comes back in a few weeks to ABC. You guys enjoy. I'm good. Samantha began her wacky list of things. Not so wacky this time. A recent episode listed services that reproductive justice advocates are trying to keep available to women in mostly southern states where abortion rights are under attack. As such, they presented the segment in the style of Food Network Best Barbecue, listing the services of a full menu of options, including sides, such as abortion, behavioral health services, contraception and family planning, gynecology, HIV testing and prevention, LGBTQ plus health services, menopause management, midwifery services, miscarriage management, pregnancy options counseling, pregnancy testing, sexually transmitted infection testing and treatment, transgender healthcare, and the sides they featured were candied mamahans, deviled and fertilized eggs, and, of course, coleslaw. The argument was if these operations provided a diversified range of services beyond abortion, people might recognize the health benefits to women of every age and increase public support. And in places where a single last-minute court injunction is the only thing standing in the way of regulating abortion services out of existence in entire states, that feels like a good move. VideoFuzzy at the movies. It was cool to find HBO's presentation of Adam Sandler and Kevin James' social treatise, I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, in my Classic Collection. Most of it is the kind of adolescent humor that kind of hurts the message some, but I'm guessing for the audience probably going to this one, you gotta kind of smack 'em right between the eyes. Stood out to me most is the music. I friggin' love Fanny Pack's 718 at the top of the show, and oh, holy Christ, the Wedding Singer cover of Freedom 90, that hit me right in the feels. It's always going to. I also enjoyed the credit roll track PM Dawn's Set Adrift on Memory Bliss, which name-checked Christina Applegate in the lyrics. Weird. We also got Adam Sandler in the vampire getup for Halloween. Nice audition scene for Hotel Transylvania fella. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. I don't know where that comes from. I've never said that in my life.
Oh, whatever. Dan Aykroyd was fun, and oh, hey, we got the David Spade cameo in this one, too. Fun. I ran into a few more FXM retro pieces. Vincent Price as the Patroon in Dragonwyck from 1946. Show certainly had a point of view about tenant farming arrangements. Also, I Wake Up Screaming from 1941 and Hangover Square from 1945. Dark reimagination of Jekyll and Hyde. This composer, a turn of the century in 1903 thereabouts, has blackout periods where his worst instincts take hold of him and he'll get violent. It's kind of hard to feel a lot of sympathy for anyone in this one, though. This nightclub singer seduces him to get him to write fresh songs for her, and all the while she's affianced to his friend, and they're both pretty much using him for his talent and laughing at him behind his back. So when he finally snaps and drops her on a bonfire, he's got no memory of the event, and when the police try to take him in the night of his big performance of his own masterwork he'd been putting off to help her all this time, he sets the concert hall on fire. As the terrified audience flees, the flames flash around the concert hall surrounding him. He continues his symphony, refusing to leave. I found a few more on Turner Classic Movies, including Neil Simon, Shirley MacLaine, and Bob Fosse's Sweet Charity, Dolly Parton and Sally Field in Steel Magnolias, The Bishop Murder Case from 1929, and Woman Times 7 from 1967, that one with Shirley MacLaine and Peter Sellers. IFC gave me a clean copy of The Campaign from 2012, without the edits from the TBS presentation I pulled in a few years ago. I got the FX DVD Extras version of The Heat from 2013, and Freeform's production of Norm of the North from 2016, which was largely unnecessary, but I liked the bear. Also got 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming off FX, and The Bone Collector off Sundance, and FXM's The Perfect Guy from 2015 with Nip Tuck's Sonolethum. Most interesting to me in this set was Vanessa Redgrave in the Turner Classic Movies presentation of 1979's Agatha, a speculative think piece exploring the real-life mystery of Agatha Christie. In 1926, on the heels of the release of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, her marriage to Archie Christie in jeopardy, the author went missing. For 11 days, police and volunteers combed the countryside and dragged the lake near where her car was found abandoned with no luck. She turned up reportedly suffering from amnesia at a spa in the area, checked in with the same last name as her husband's mistress, Nancy Neal. The fictionalized account of this movie fills in those gaps with a rather astonishing suggestion that in the face of her husband's infidelity, she was in fact suicidal and found a way to kill herself, and that it should be at the hands of her husband's mistress. What followed was a hopelessly contrived routine by which Agatha managed to divert the spa staff elsewhere, lure Miss Neal into the electrotherapy lounge, having first disabled the safety fuses and convincing her to throw the switch. All of this she managed to do, and would have gotten away with it too, had it not been for the interference of Dustin Hoffman as an American reporter, tracking the missing author, swooping in at the nick of time to shut the machine down and revive her. Heavens be praised! Well, it's as good a guess as any other, I imagine. More than this potential inspiration for Gone Girl, I enjoyed the performances by Red, Hoffman, and Timothy Dalton as the philandering Colonel Christie, and happy that she was able to stage a second act for her life with Max Mallowan. I first heard about this show from Kemper Donovan and Catherine Thorbeck, a pair of podcasters I've been following for a few months now. Each week in their podcast, All About Agatha, they review a novel or short story by the Queen of Crime herself, including television adaptations where available, and are busy ranking the novels best to worst. They discuss the victim, the suspects, the world and the story as it appears to be, closing out with the world as it actually is. Throughout, they carry on a delightful banter and story critique, which, as a longtime lover of the works of Agatha Christie, I've been enjoying my reacquaintance with these works and their discussion of them. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts.
What I've been watching.
In what I've been watching, it's getting late here, but I've wanted to talk about this one for months now, so I'm going to do it here. It's just, really quickly, not too long ago, my mate Ralph, and I finished watching the anime series Polar Bear's Cafe on Crunchyroll. It's a fun show. The anime is great. I love how, like in BoJack Horseman, third season airing right now on Comedy Central, there are animals interacting directly with humans in this town, including penguins and panda bears, a grizzly bear bartender from up the street, and lots of pandas' co-workers from the zoo, including the zookeeper, Mr. Handa, who has a crush on the title character's employee, waitress Mrs. Sako. According to IMDb, it looks like the show aired for one season from 2012 to 2013, airing 50 episodes altogether. Appearances by the sloth and the tortoise did manage to slow things down interminably sometimes, and there were a few general themes the show trotted out for repetition, including the polar bear Shirakuma's deliberate misunderstanding of things people would say as things those things rhymed with, however tenuously, which was comic but a little tedious. Penguin and Panda sniping at each other, a panda would be lazy and self-involved, and Penguin would complain at him. Still, they were sweet. I did have to contend with subtitles for the Japanese language show, but it was plenty enjoyable, and especially if you're looking for something your kids might enjoy. On balance, I'd recommend it.
Upcoming shows.
Finally, along with the production of Eric Idle's Spamalot I mentioned up there, the Fargo Moorhead Community Theatre presents Michael Frayn's backstage theatre farce Noises Off, coming up first weekend in September here. One of my very favorite shows, and that company does such a good job with it. Ralph and I are planning to take that in. Very much looking forward to it, and highly recommend. And with that, thank you so much for checking in my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, past episodes at Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, via email, or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJ VideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
This is podcasting gold. What are you talking about?
Video outtakes.
Oh, and in case you can't get to it right away, here's the audio from VideoFuzzy The Video Part 3 that I put together for We Are As Gods. Enjoy.
We are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods.